To win your fantasy football league, you obviously need to have the best players, as well as a healthy roster. One or two injuries can simply doom your season. We've all been there. But winning a fantasy league also comes down to smart late-round drafting and making the sneaky good waiver wire pickups. Finding sleepers out of nowhere can make all the difference in the world. We're all kicking ourselves for not taking Patrick Mahomes last year. We'll save you time from doing your research. All 32 clubs have at least one big-time fantasy sleeper that could make a difference in your league. So let's get right into it. Arizona Cardinals, Andy Isabella. Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, and David Johnson are the bigger household names, but don't sleep on rookie Andy Isabella. Drafted in the second round by the Cardinals, the Massachusetts product should be a tremendous fit in a Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray-led offense. Isabella has excellent speed and overall quickness. It wouldn't be a surprise if he quickly morphed into Murray's favorite pass catcher in 2019. Atlanta Falcons, Qadree Ollison. The Falcons lost one half of their dominant running back duo when Tevin Coleman left in free agency. Devonta Freeman needs a sidekick, and rookie Ollison just might fit the bill. With a 6'2", 225-pound frame, Ollison will be a reliable goal line back for the Falcons. He won't be as dangerous as Freeman or Coleman in the passing game, but Ollison could end up being Atlanta's leader in rushing touchdowns. He's a true power back, absolutely worth a look if you can get him. Baltimore Ravens, Justice Hill. Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards figure to be the lead backs in Baltimore in the early going, but flashy rookie Justice Hill could step up as the #1 guy by the season's end. Hill was an unstoppable force at Oklahoma State, and he'll fit in nicely in a rush-first offense commanded by dual-threat QB Lamar Jackson. Hill has an excellent skill set and burst speed. We like his chances of being the Ravens' top running back by season's end, so he's somebody to watch closely in the later rounds of your draft. Buffalo Bills, Devin Singletary. Fantasy users will be nervous about drafting any Buffalo running back. Perennial Pro Bowler LaShawn McCoy and ageless wonder Frank Gore will take plenty of carries. Veteran TJ Yeldon might get a handful of touches too. But don't sleep on flashy rookie Devin Singletary, whom the Bills drafted in the 3rd round. He seems like the best fit in this offense. The Bills should be trying to get younger at running back anyway. And a 22-year-old Singletary will probably be more effective than Gore and McCoy, who are both on the wrong side of 30. So don't be afraid to take a chance on Singletary. If he becomes the starting back early, the man will push hard for 1,000 yards. Carolina Panthers, Chris Hogan. The Panthers' depth chart carries a handful of good but not great wide receivers. This includes DJ Moore, Torrey Smith, and Curtis Samuel. But offseason pickup Chris Hogan could emerge as a valuable piece in the Carolina offense. He's coming off 2 Super Bowl rings over a 3-year span in New England. Hogan posted over 500 yards in 2 of his 3 years with the Pats. Cam Newton can always use another reliable target, so monitor this guy. He could make quite a difference. Chicago Bears, Taylor Gabriel. The speedy Gabriel enjoyed his best season yet, with the Bears last season notching 67 receptions for 688 yards and 2 touchdowns. Allen Robinson was good but not great for the Bears last season. Might Gabriel step up as Mitch Trubisky's top go-to receiver in 2019? He's at least a reliable #2 option in the Bears' passing game. Gabriel is good enough to start in a flex spot too, especially if you have a handful of key players on the same bye week. Cincinnati Bengals, Tyler Eifert. Sadly, injuries have limited Eifert to a total of just 14 games since his 2015 breakout year, in which he logged a whopping 13 touchdowns. The Bengals decided to give Eifert a 1-year pact, hoping he'll regain that special form from 4 years ago. Well, if Eifert can simply stay healthy in 2019, maybe he will re-emerge as a key fantasy asset. With A.J. Green injured, Eifert stands to earn more targets from Andy Dalton. Don't forget Eifert did log 5 touchdowns in just 8 games during the 2016 season. So if he plays all 16 contests, Eifert could post double-digit touchdowns. It all comes down to health. Cleveland Browns, RASHARD Higgins. They call him Hollywood Higgins, and he just might be your ticket to fantasy success. With limited snaps in just 13 games in 2018, Hollywood turned 53 targets and 39 receptions for 572 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now with Baker Mayfield under center for a full season and fellow breakout candidate Antonio Callaway suspended for the first 4 games of the season, Higgins has the opportunity to really take his game to another level in 2019. If that happens, you'll either be loving yourself for taking him late in your draft or kicking yourself for passing on him. Dallas Cowboys, Michael Gallup. Amari Cooper is unquestionably the top receiver in Dallas, but there isn't a whole lot after him. If Randall Cobb couldn't regain his star form with Aaron Rodgers, why should we expect him to do so in Dallas? Michael Gallup was a nice 2nd or 3rd option for Dak Prescott in 2018, notching 33 receptions for 507 yards and 2 touchdowns. With defenses focusing more on Cooper now, Gallup will get open more often and he'll earn more targets from Prescott in the process. He's in line for an even better sophomore year. Keep a close eye on Gallup when it comes to the later rounds. Denver Broncos DaeSean Hamilton. The Broncos have a veteran standout in Emmanuel Sanders, a talented sophomore in Cortland Sutton, and a future superstar and rookie tight end Noah Fant. That makes DaeSean Hamilton the number 4 pass catcher in Denver. But who knows, Sanders might finally start to show his age, especially as he tries to recover from an Achilles tear. Fant might struggle to adapt at the professional level in his first season, so maybe Hamilton will be Denver's number 2 wideout. Not to mention, Hamilton has turned heads with his game-changing speed, and Joe Flacco, owner of one of the game's best deep ball arms, loves his deep threats. Don't be surprised if he turns Hamilton into a major weapon in the Mile High City. Detroit Lions Danny Amendola. The Miami Dolphins released Amendola after just 1 season, and he wound up reuniting with Matt Patricia, Bob Quinn, and Trey Flowers, all former Patriots, this offseason. Amendola is good for over 500 yards a season, but he might flourish even more in a pass-happy offense led by Matthew Stafford. He was only the number 3 or 4 pass catcher in New England, and Amendola couldn't do much with Miami's terrible quarterbacks. But he could very well enjoy a career year here with the Lions. Amendola is good enough to warrant a bench spot on your team. The familiarity with Patricia and other former Pats will help. Green Bay Packers Jimmy Graham. Aaron Rodgers never uses his tight ends, but the Packers couldn't help but hand Jimmy Graham a 3-year, $30 million deal in 2018 free agency. Graham couldn't get on the same page with Rodgers, and he tallied just 55 receptions for 636 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. But new head coach Matt LaFleur is bringing a brand new playbook with fresh play calling ideas. Rodgers and Graham will have more time to improve their chemistry. The latter does his damage in the red zone, so the goal is for Green Bay to factor that into their new playbook. Don't be surprised if Graham regains his old form and posts double-digit touchdowns. That would make him a true game-changer in fantasy football. Houston Texans KEKE. Lamar Miller tore his ACL and will miss the entire season, so newcomer Duke Johnson becomes the number 1 back. Johnson is no longer a sleeper now, but second-year receiver KEKE should be able to take off in his sophomore year. The Texans know that DeAndre Hopkins can't be the only reliable pass catcher for Deshaun Watson. The offense needs to get more bodies involved, and QT showed some flashes with 28 receptions for 287 yards in 6 games last season. Indianapolis Colts NYHEIM Hines. Pass-catching running backs are always valuable in fantasy leagues. He's no Todd Gurley or Christian McCaffrey, but Colts running back Hines is a true monster in PPR leagues. He only had 314 rushing yards last year, but Hines caught 63 passes for 425 yards. Hines will be overlooked because he's playing behind rising star Marlon Mack, but Hines' intense workload as a pass catcher makes him a reliable and valuable player in fantasy. Don't be afraid to take him in the middle rounds once all the top wideouts and running backs are taken. Go bold or go home. Jacksonville Jaguars Marquise Lee. A knee injury forced Lee to miss the entire 2018 season, and Jaguars offense struggled mightily without him. But Lee, who recorded over 50 receptions and more than 700 yards in both 2016 and 17, is in line for a career year. The Jaguars signed Nick Foles in free agency. He's a giant upgrade over Blake Bortles. If Lee could post solid numbers with Bortles, imagine what he can do with a good quarterback like Foles. Don't be surprised if Lee emerges as a 1,000-yard receiver for the first time in 2019. Kansas City Chiefs Darwin Thompson. Damian Williams is obviously the lead back in KC, but rookie Darwin Thompson, whom the Chiefs took in the 6th round, will get his fair share of reps too. Andy Reid loves getting multiple running backs involved in his offense. Thompson was a stud at Utah State, and his overall skill set makes him a nice fit for the KC offense. Williams has never been a bell-cow running back, and he could struggle to maintain that role in 2019. If that turns out to be the case, Thompson should see plenty of action in his rookie year. He could be a very popular waiver wire pickup in short time. Be ready to take him. Los Angeles Chargers Justin Jackson. Melvin Gordon's future with the Chargers is uncertain, and it's possible that a holdout will affect his performance nonetheless. The Chargers know they'll be fine, however, with Justin Jackson and Austin Eckler ready for bigger workloads. Jackson only had 206 rushing yards and 15 receptions for 135 yards last season, but the second-year back can expect a larger role in his sophomore year. Even if Eckler earns the starting back duties, Jackson will be able to threaten for 1,000 yards from scrimmage. As Gordon's backup, Eckler had 958 yards from scrimmage and 6 TDs last year. If Jackson becomes the number 2 back, he can put up similar numbers. Los Angeles Rams Gerald Everett. Todd Gurley is the ultimate fantasy football darling, and the Rams feature 3 stud wideouts in Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods. Obviously, every owner would love to have either of those 4 guys on their teams. Now there are only so many Pro Bowl caliber stud fantasy tight ends in the NFL. So if you missed out on the main guys, don't be afraid to take a chance on Gerald Everett later in your draft. Everett only had 33 receptions for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns last year, but he should continue to improve in Sean McVay's offense. Everett is not a bad pick in a later round if you're looking for some quality depth at the tight end position. Miami Dolphins, Preston Williams. The Dolphins don't have a lot of valuable fantasy players heading into this season. They moved on from receiver Danny Amendola, and Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker aren't exactly the guys who can help you win a fantasy title. But maybe undrafted Colorado State product, Preston Williams, can emerge as the new #1 receiver in Miami. He's impressed coaches and players during practice and preseason. He could form some nice chemistry with Josh Rosen. And since the Dolphins lack true playmaking talents on offense, Williams won't really have to fight hard for targets. The potential is there for Williams to be a nice playmaker and a valuable fantasy receiver. Minnesota Vikings, Alexander Mattison. The Vikings drafted Mattison in the 3rd round, and the Boise State product should see a good amount of reps in his rookie year. Keep in mind that once Kevin Stefanski took over as offensive coordinator late in the 2018 season, Minnesota started to run the ball more. Top running back Dalvin Cook hasn't been able to stay healthy yet either, so it wouldn't be a shock if Mattison wound up becoming the lead back for the Vikings. Or many could simply decide to split the carries between Mattison and Cook. That would help the latter stay fresh and healthy once and for all. The Vikings know that they can't leave the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands, even if he's earning $84 million guaranteed. Add everything up and it makes Mattison a big-time fantasy sleeper. New England Patriots, Tom Brady. He may have won his 6th Super Bowl, but 2018 was far from one of Tom Brady's better seasons. He's shown some signs of declining, and the Patriots seem intent on running the ball even more for the remainder of his career. Not many people are considering Brady to be a top 20 fantasy quarterback, but folks, he's only 2 years removed from an MVP season, and he really turned it up big time in the postseason. #he's still got it. Don't be afraid to take a chance on Brady. He'll still do more than enough, and with Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman rounding out a better receiving corps, his numbers shouldn't drop off too much. If anything, they should be better than last year's. New Orleans Saints, Tre'Quan Smith. The Saints don't have a lot of weaknesses on their roster, although they do need somebody to complement top wideout Michael Thomas. The addition of tight end Jared Cook should help, but maybe second-year receiver Smith is ready for a bigger role. Smith had 44 receptions for 427 yards and 5 touchdowns last season. The Saints know Thomas can't be the only pass catcher for Breeze to lean on, and Smith has the skill set to be a special weapon in this offense. Most of you fantasy players won't land Thomas or Alvin Kamara, but it's oh so tempting to get at least one Saints player on your team. Don't be afraid to take a chance on Smith. New York Giants, Golden Tate. The veteran slot receiver is coming off his worst statistical season since 2012. He's entering his age 31 season, which is old for a wideout. And Tate is going from Philadelphia to a terrible Giants team led by past his prime QB Eli Manning. And Tate was handed a 4-game suspension for violating the league's wellness policy. Whoa, that's a lot of red flags. Why take Tate? Well, because there are so many red flags. Chances are your fantasy opponents will stay away from Tate completely, but this guy might emerge as the new #1 receiver on the Giants when he returns. Can you be patient and just stash him on your bench for 4 weeks? It's all about guessing in later rounds, and Tate has shown that he can produce when he's on the field, so don't be scared of him. New York Jets, Chris Herndon IV. Like Tate, Herndon was handed a 4-game suspension. That'll naturally scare your opponents off. They won't want to go anywhere near Herndon. Herndon caught 39 passes for 502 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. Sam Darnold is bound to improve in his second year, plus new head coach and offensive genius Adam Gase should be able to maximize Herndon's production. This guy could be a top 10 fantasy tight end by the conclusion of 2019. If no one drafts him in your fantasy league, be ready to scoop him off the waiver wire before his suspension ends. You won't regret it. Oakland Raiders, Darren Waller. After 2 unproductive years in Baltimore, Waller rejoined the Raiders last year. He only suited up in 4 games, however, notching 6 receptions for 75 yards. But there's good reason to believe he can emerge as a star in the Oakland offense here. Waller has great size at 6'6", 255 pounds. We saw Jared Cook enjoy a career year in John Gruden's offense last season. Cook went on to sign with the Saints, so Waller is the new lead tight end in Oakland. Why can't he put up big numbers as Cook's replacement? This is a true hidden gem, people. Philadelphia Eagles, Deshaun Jackson. Zach Ertz is a top 5 fantasy tight end. Alshon Jeffrey is a top 15 or 20 receiver. Nelson Aguilar will make some nice plays, and newcomer Jordan Howard should absolutely flourish in Doug Peterson's offense. And rookie J.J. Arcega-Whiteside should make quite an impact as well. There's so many weapons on Philly. Who can we pick as a sleeper? Yes, Deshaun Jackson. The Eagles brought back the speedy Pro Bowler this offseason, and he'll flourish with Carson Wentz as his quarterback. In fact, it wouldn't be a surprise if Jackson was Philly's leading receiver by season's end. You probably value Ertz and Jeffrey more, but no fantasy owner should be afraid to take a chance on Philly. His production is consistent, and you know how he'll be a big play machine in Philly. Pittsburgh Steelers James Washington. The Steelers traded disgruntled wideout Antonio Brown to Oakland, meaning Juju Smith-Schuster slots in as top pass catcher in Pittsburgh. Okay, but who's going to be the number 2 option? The leading candidate is Dante Moncrief, but don't ignore James Washington. The Steelers love this guy, and this team always turns little-known players into stud receivers. Washington could seriously emerge as a 1,000-yard threat, with Brown now out of the picture. If you want to be bold, Washington is somebody you shouldn't be afraid to take in the mid-rounds. San Francisco 49ers Jalen Hurd. The 49ers knew they had to rebuild the pass-catching corps for the returning Jimmy Garoppolo. Tight end George Kittle obviously can't do it all on his own after all. The 49ers drafted wideouts Deebo Samuel and Jalen Hurd this year in hopes of supplying Jimmy G with some much-needed weapons to enjoy a breakout year. Kittle will go early, and Samuel will probably go before Hurd in most drafts. The former was a second-round pick, while Hurd was a third-rounder. Well, don't sleep on Hurd. He's a prime fit in Kyle Shanahan's offense, and he'll be a nice big play threat for Garoppolo, so don't be afraid to take a chance on him. Seattle Seahawks DK Metcalf. David Moore is going to miss time with injury, which leaves the Seahawks' number 2 receiver spot up for grabs. Tyler Lockett is obviously Russell Wilson's go-to guy, but the special teams utility weapon will need some support. Metcalf was drafted second round by the Seahawks this year, and the Ole Miss product should form a nice connection with Russell Wilson. With good size at 6'4" and 229 pounds, Metcalf should do a good amount of damage in the red zone. This guy has a nice skill set, and the Seahawks will do everything they can to maximize his talents. Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cameron Brate. Fellow tight end O.J. Howard is the prime breakout candidate in the Tampa Bay offense, but don't overlook Cameron Brate here. Brate wasn't much of a factor in 2018, but don't forget that he nearly recorded consecutive 600-yard seasons in 2016 and 17. Over those 2 years, Brate compiled 14 touchdown receptions. New head coach Bruce Arians should be able to maximize the skill sets of both Brate and Howard. The latter will obviously go earlier in practically every fantasy draft, but if you're desperate to fill out a TE spot, don't go sleeping on Brate. Tennessee Titans Dion Lewis. After posting a career year with the Patriots in 2017, Lewis signed with the Titans to complement power back Derrick Henry. He averaged a woeful 3.3 yards per carry, finishing with 517 in total and only 1 rushing TD on the season. But Lewis made up for it with 59 receptions for 400 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Lewis should continue to produce as a quality pass-catching back, which makes him valuable in PPR leagues. And hey, he'll do much better than 2 total touchdowns this time. We promise. Washington Redskins Terry McLaurin. The Redskins were already thin at receiver, and they lost top wideout Jamison Crowder in free agency. That opens the door for rookie Terry McLaurin to emerge as the number 1 receiver in D.C. The Ohio State product was drafted by Washington in the 3rd round. McLaurin should be able to make some nice plays with former Buckeyes teammate Dwayne Haskins as his quarterback. He might not light up the scoreboard in his rookie year, but there aren't many guys to steal targets from McLaurin. He could be a nice late round or waiver pickup for your team. Did we miss any other obvious fantasy football sleeper candidates? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps us out a ton and we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.